so I'm Safina, and this is Andrew and Bennett, who's closer to me. So we are going to talk about financing your education. I'm not going to delve too much into the importance of international education because I think there's been a lot of talk about international education. It just does not help you just with the 360-degree development. But the bigger picture is it's important for the world. We need to be culturally sensitive to make strategic decisions and have a happy world, right? But one of the biggest impediments students feel is the finances. It's expensive, right? What if I say that there is a school for everyone's pocket? And everybody who wants to study abroad and get an international experience, there is hope, right? And I think that's where we're going to start off with the note of hope, right? So let's start with finances. How much does it cost to study? So for example, I represent Education USA, which is a US government outfit, right? So we have 4,500 colleges in the United States with different tuition fees and various components. I'll also touch upon the components of the whole cost of studying in the US. So Andrew, could you talk a little bit about the various components of, what the student should look at when you're looking at the package for study abroad?
All right. Well, number one, thank you, and number one, thank you to BrainGain magazine. First and foremost, I want to talk about something that everyone is thinking, aside from finances. Are you welcome? And I work in the United States, so I'm going to speak for the United States, and I want you to know one specific thing. You are absolutely welcome in the United States. And I want you to know that, and I want you to pin it to your hearts, and I want you to not worry about what anybody else says, or what you hear, or what people think they know. You are absolutely welcome. We want you, and we really, really want to help you get to where you want to go. So that's first. Second, I want to talk about music. I like music. I'm the son of a musician, and I've been around it my entire life. And I feel that there is one particular thing that makes music so special, is that it seems to always be inspirational. If you talk about the artist Whitney Houston, she said, "I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside." Never forget that. You are all beautiful and special and wonderful, and you have so much to give. As far as finances are concerned, there's another artist that's a little bit past Whitney Houston in terms of his youth. His name is Nas. And in 2002, give or take, he came out with a song, and the lyrics started off with, and I want you all to stand up for me real quick. Stand up, everybody up. Everybody up.
On your feet, get up, get up, get up.
I want you to do me a favor and repeat after me. I know I can.
I know I can.
Be what I want to be.
Be what I want to be.
If I work hard at it,
If I work hard at it,
I'll be where I want to be.
I'll be where I want to be.
I know I can.
I know I can.
Be what I want to be.
Be what I want to be.
If I work hard at it,
If I work hard at it,
I'll be where I want to be.
I'll be where I want to
Now give yourselves a clap.
Okay, that's quite powerful.
All right.
I was going to say, I'm not sure he's the son of a musician or a pastor.
A little bit
A
of
minister, yeah, okay. Maybe there are elements of both.
So, look, the bottom line is this. Education is not free. You're going to have to work for it. But I'm going to be honest with you. I graduated college in debt. It scared me like nothing has ever scared me in my life. Because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to pay it back. I was a lowly student, and I had no real job or income or assets to offer, but I had to finish school. I finished school with $3,500 in debt because my family just didn't have it. But I took a job after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, actually overseas. And what I decided, I committed that I was going to pay the $50 a month because I knew that I didn't want to have it hanging over my head. So I want you to understand that debt is only dangerous if you don't commit to paying it back. If you don't think about A, why you're incurring the debt, why you're taking it on, and B, commit to paying it back. If there's one thing that I would say that I missed growing up, and this is something I want you to take with you, if there's one thing that I missed in school growing up, and those of us who are in the position to be teachers, financial management. You should go to anybody you know who's an accountant, who's a banker, who knows numbers, who manages the family funds or whatever, and ask them, please show me how to balance a book. Show me how to create a budget. Show me how to make sure the numbers are okay so that I'm not in the red. And I swear to you, you will thank them because you will realize later on that it pays off when you know how to manage your money.
Yeah, so what about the different components of, financing your international education? So when you're looking at, let's take the package, right? So what should a student look at? You have the tuition costs, you have the fees, you have lab costs, you have insurance, your package. What would you say would be the range for you studying in the US? Let's take, $25,000, let's say 50,
Sure.
60, $70,000?
Sure, I can only speak from my experience. My bachelor's degree cost $13,000 a year, all in. Okay, so that's tuition plus room and board plus the occasional meal, right? Maybe once or twice a week I got to eat. I'm only kidding. But then if you go to another location that you might have heard of in the Northeast in a place called Massachusetts, it's a bit more expensive. So, you can go from 13 grand to 60 grand. It really depends on A, what you know that you have in your pocket, B, of course, scholarship opportunity that is presented to you, C, how much willingness or ability you have to take out a loan, and then the other thing is, and this is something I learned from an aunt of mine who is also a professor. Don't be too proud to ask for help. Don't be too proud. And the other part of that lesson is don't ask for a dime when you need a dollar, right? Be aware of how much it costs to get where you want to go, and don't be afraid to ask for it. But at the same time, don't be afraid to work for it.
Yes, so the majority is the US, right? So I'm going to come to Bennet, who represents all the other countries and international education. So Bennet, what's your take on international education costs, finances? You represent Melbourne Institute of Technology at Vietnam, right? So what's your take on?
At this point, I also worked in India. I worked with 7 different institutions in 5 years. I was the founding vice dean of the Juggle School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. So I got a sense about the local or domestic issues and then going abroad. If you think about getting money, and I know you must be thinking about getting money, there are only 3 ways. You can beg, you can borrow, or you can work for it. Essentially, your request to a university to give you a scholarship is begging. You didn't do anything for it. They're going to give you something. They do have expectations in exchange, but basically that is a give me something in expectation of something, but it's not money. Borrowing is a very well, at this point, and perhaps over-established method. You can borrow from relatives, you can borrow from parents, you can borrow from institutions, you can borrow from the institution you're going to. There are programs of borrowing in many, many different ways, and I think actually the world banking system is growing more in that. Borrowing is a very legitimate way. And then the third way is you work for it. And I'm going to represent Harjeev, I think, in this one, and that he says, yeah, if you go someplace, you have to work for it and pay your own tuition. I'll give you a couple of stories. And by the way, I have an undergraduate degree, 3 masters, and a PhD. I paid for every one of those myself. parents did not do anything, and I didn't get scholarships. I did get scholarships for various programs I started within those institutions. In the 8th grade, I took a class called shop, basically woodworking and drawing. And the shop instructor required everyone to have one of these at the beginning of class. And it turned out if you didn't have one of these at the beginning of class, you got an F for the day. So enterprising kid that I was in 8th grade, I started picking up pencils from the ground. And just before class, I go, Andrew, do you have a pencil? No? Cost you 10 cents. No? Okay, you got an F. When my stepfather found out about this, he cut off my allowance. He said, you're making money, you will feed yourself from now on. And that's the attitude, right? Okay, so you take the paper route. Fred Smith, who founded Federal Express, started out delivering absolutely positively on time as a paper boy in his early teens. He financed his education through Yale by flying private charter planes at the age of 18. He became a pilot when he was 16. He worked his way through school. You're getting my point, is there are a lot of opportunities, whether they're work study, whether there's independent work, whether there is consulting. Almost everybody knows something about teaching other people. Tutoring has become a way of making money. There are a lot of different ways of making money. So I would say, if you can't get it by begging, and you don't want to borrow, or it's limited, then plan on working. And that is a really rich world in which you will find yourself acting as an entrepreneur far before the colleagues in the business schools actually take the entrepreneurial course.
And if I can add to that real quick, understand that whatever it is you're doing to fund your way through school, and this is what I meant by don't be too proud, because look, when it comes down to it, if it comes to sweeping a floor or finishing school, there should be no contest. You sweep the floor and you finish school, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, can I just interrupt you there? So, the point you're trying to make is, yes, there are work opportunities when you go to a different country to probably partially fund your education. But the point I would like to make here, because I represent the US Department of State program, is there are certain visa rules that you need to follow, and whether it's the UK or the US or many other countries, they allow you to work for a couple of hours on a student visa. And under no circumstances can you violate those norms. Please understand that these gentlemen are very nice, they're saying you can work and study, but you also need to be mindful about your regulations. And that's extremely important because violation of that could have very serious repercussions. So you need to be responsible. You may want to partially fund your education. You don't want your parents to be, selling them of their kidneys to fund your international education, but be responsible for your actions too. So, be very careful when you are on alien soil and you're going there for a particular purpose, and that is to pursue a particular degree, right?
Yeah, I would actually absolutely agree with that, is you need to pay attention to the rules of the country you're in. The institution I work with currently is an Australian institution. We're governed in Vietnam by the rules in Vietnam. In India, you're governed by the rules in India. And if you went to the UK, same thing. So each country has work rules, requirements, visa requirements, expectations of students. I'd also say, though, that the world is now online and on commerce 24/7, 24/7, 24/24, whatever the number is, all the time. And what do you define as working as opposed to doing your own business is one of those gray areas, perhaps.
Yes.
But that with good advice, you could find the right way between the poles and find a solution. I think now perhaps there is more opportunity than ever before to find ways of working or delivering value to others for money than there were probably when you went to school. No, there were way more opportunities when I went to school. There was just so many because nobody worried about working. Everybody was expected. That was it.
So, from here, I think one crucial aspect that we need to cover is what exactly is financial aid, right? So is it financial aid scholarship, or are they used, one over the other? No. So financial aid is your ability to get financial assistance to pay for your college, right? Now the various types of financial aid, even a loan could come under financial aid, or work study loan is also part of financial aid. A scholarship is also part of financial aid, right? Now, here what I want to talk about specifically is the different categories of aid that you get, especially when you know the terminologies like need-based aid or merit-based aid or a sports scholarship, etc. So who is eligible for what? So I think this is extremely important. So Andrew, if you could just throw a little bit of light on what exactly do you mean by a merit-based aid and a need-based aid?
Okay.
And I could probably chip in.
Sure.
And any form of other aid that probably Bennet you could add on.
Sure. All right. So when you are applying to school, and I'm only going to speak for the United States, and I'm only going to speak from my experience, when you're applying to school in the United States, you are required to fill out something called a Fafsa. Now, that's something generally that domestic students do, okay? However, also on the Fafsa, I do believe that you can show need. You can show that you might need not necessarily a government support because you're not a US citizen, but maybe the school will fund you in a way that helps you, okay? So that might come under a scholarship, it might come under that would be a need-based scholarship. The other one is merit-based, so that's when your grades and test scores and essay and personal statement, those come into play. So you can express it in a different way. So a lot of times when you apply to schools, you have one essay talking about why you want to go to school, and you might have another essay talking about your financial requirements for going to school. So it really does depend on the institution. So the two that I'm familiar with offhand are the merit-based scholarship, which is very much about your scores, and the need-based scholarship, which depending on where you're coming from and where you're trying to go, you could have different kinds of ways to get that based on the rules of the government.
Yeah, and I would say,
If you just don't mind, I mean, can I just clarify or just add a little bit more on that? So basically, when you want to study in the United States, the first step to financing your education is to evaluate how much resources is available to you, and that becomes your expected family contribution, right? Then you identify a particular XYZ college to go and study there, and that particular college would have a particular cost or a price tag. So difference between those two, the expected family contribution as well as the price tag, is your need. And this need is variable, but your expected family contribution is constant. Please understand that. And some colleges, which says they're need sensitive or need aware, would look at primarily your scholastic and other activities and your merit, and then see whether you can be admitted, and once you're admitted, they would look at your need too. So it can be pretty competitive to get into a need-based institution and get your need met. But some colleges also mention that if you were admitted, 100% of your need is going to be met. So if you require, let's say $56,000 or $60,000 and you're admitted, they would give you that money. And that's the promise they make to you. In a need-blind institutions, they do not look at your need at all. They look at purely your merit and your abilities and admit you, and then see how much need you require, right? And of course, merit, colleges also mention they probably add the merit. There are various permutations and combinations. Merit is not based on any of these parameters like need or expected family contribution. It's purely based on the word merit. What are you strong at? Bennet.
I was going to come back to the admissions question. And sometimes it starts sounding like it's so hard to get into an institution. And in fact, it is numerically. But once an institution decides they want you to come, and I'm looking at some admissions officers out here, they want you to come. There are reasons beyond your grades that they want you to be part of that class that they're forming the first freshmen starting in the fall. And in that light, I think most of them now are more than just a little bit active. You're probably in one of these institutions. Once you decide on a student, you want that student to come. The people in the admissions area, financial aid, want to work with you so that you do come. So once you realize that, it's not the either or, zero-sum game that you might look at it today, not having applied and not gotten in. Once you get the admissions, though, it's up to you to try to work the whole package out, and that's what you're saying. Some is financial needs, some comes from the family, some will be your expectations of future earnings, which is what a loan is. Others are you could work during, up to the number. There are a lot of possibilities. Once you get admitted, you're realizing you're working with the institution's financial people to figure out how to get you there.
And they will work with you because the $3,500 that I owed when I graduated wasn't the difference between the money that I had in my pocket and the tuition. Because I remember going, true story, I remember going back down to school, because I'm from Ohio and I went to school in Atlanta, so I remember going back down to school and I didn't have a dormitory. True story. I didn't have a place to put my head when I went back to school, but there was nothing that was going to stop me from going back down to school. And I went to one of my senior deans and I said, I don't have enough money to stay here on campus. What am I going to do? And he looked me dead in the face and he said, what's your GPA? Number one, it was the second half of my senior year. He said, what's your GPA? I said it was a 3.2 and change. And he said, I'm not going to let anything like a pillow stop you from finishing this place that you've done so well at. And I finished because I was a resident aide in the second half of my senior year, and that's how I finished school.
That counts as working? Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it covered my tuition.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a work study thing. But the other thing is this. Now, I travel the world recruiting students to go to graduate business programs. And I was giving a presentation in Southeast China. And I was thinking about the students that were coming to my school, and I was also thinking about the students that weren't. And in the middle of a presentation just like this, I stopped dead in my tracks, and I asked the question, are students not applying because they don't think they can get in? Let's think about that. You're not applying because you don't think you can get in. That's not exactly, in my opinion, the right approach. And to that point, don't not apply because you don't think you can pay for it. Apply, get in, and figure it out.